Okay, we're starting chapter 11 here, which is on the skeletal muscles. And so we're going to describe muscles as organs, talk about muscle attachments and action, how muscles work in groups, and identify the muscles, the major muscles that you have to know. So again, muscles are, they function in movement, posture, moving air in and out of the lungs, that's ventilations. They produce heat. They're involved in communication and then heart and organ function. As organs, they have characteristics that they can contract and they're excitable by neurons. They can also extend and they're somewhat elastic. And this is part of the idea of muscles as organs. They contain not just one tissue, but many types of tissue, primarily skeletal muscle, but also lots of connective tissues woven all the way through the muscles, endomysium, paramysium, and epimysium. And although the skeletal muscle in the belly has lots of skeletal muscle fibers, near its ends, it's tendinous, which is all connective tissues. We refer to these tendons as the origin for the tendon that remains stable when the muscle contracts, and insertion for the end that causes movement. The thickest part of the muscle will be the belly, and these are where the skeletal muscle fibers are. The strength is determined by how thick that belly is, its cross-sectional area. And when it does contract, it will get thicker. Muscles themselves work in groups, okay? And groups that cause or move a certain joint, like the elbow joint, are all the ones that have the same movement are referred to as agonists. And so like here in this picture, there are several muscles that flex the elbow. The biceps brachia, the brachialis, and the brachioradialis. These are all agonists. The biceps brachia is the largest of these and is often referred to as the prime movers. The smaller ones are referred to as synergists or agonists. Whenever a muscle contracts, there are also fixators, muscles that stabilize other parts, particularly the origin of the prime mover. Fixators work with the agonists, and antagonists are muscles that have the opposite action, so they'll return the joint back to its original position. Here we see the biceps brachia. Okay, we see its attachments, its two heads from the scapula. We see its insertion on the radius, and we also see its antagonists, the muscles that are doing the opposite, and those are the triceps. Okay, and they're inserting on the opposite side, and so there's a good example of origin and insertion. And generally, the antagonist will just be on the other side of the joint. And so you have your biceps flexes the elbow, the triceps extends it. Okay, I want to say a little bit about muscle names. Muscles generally have very basic names. They're named for some aspect of their anatomy or some aspect of how they function. So it may be naming the body part that they're on, like pectoralis or gluteus or brachial, or maybe it's related to their size. Maximus and minimus are probably the two most common names, but you also get things like longus. You also have names that indicate the insertions that may say exactly where the muscle inserts upon. We'll talk about the sternocleidomastoid, which inserts on the sternum, the clavicle, cleido, and then the mastoid process of the temporal. It could also be their shape, the orientation of their fibers, the number of attachments or heads, and then what they do. It often says abductor. That tells you what they do. Abduction, flexor, extensor, there's lots of these. Okay, so I might ask you any of that on the next exam. This next bit of stuff I won't ask on the next exam. This is lab material, but I wanted to expose you to it. So the first week we're going to go through a group of muscles that are on the head and neck. The masseter, which elevates the jaw in chewing, and then a bunch of other muscles that are involved in facial expression. The orbiculus oculi, which closes the eye or causes a wink. The zygomaticus, major or minor, which elevate the corner of the mouth as in smiling. the levator labii superioris, which kind of lifts the upper lip as in sneering. The depressor anguli oris, which pulls the corner of the mouth down, again, as in when you would frown or something like that. The orbiculus oris, which closes the lips as in kissing. What else here? You can see the sternocleidomastoid. This can pull the chin down or the head down and anteriorly, or it can turn the head from side to side. There's one on each side. And you can see a little bit of the splenius capitis as it extends the neck. The sternocleidomastoid actually is going to flex the neck. Okay, here you see these same muscles from the front. And so in one side you have the masseter cut away. So again, you have them there. And here are views with them under the skin. The muscles of facial expression are kind of neat because they are only partially voluntary. And so we can control most of our skeletal muscles very, very precisely, although our facial expressions, we have less than total control over that. Okay. Next week, we'll talk about muscles of the torso. These include the deltoid, that's going to abduct the arm, the pectoralis major, which flexes the shoulder joint. The pectoralis minor is underneath there. It moves the scapula, as does the serratus anterior. Those are all muscles kind of working the scapula. Here's a look from the back. There you can see the splenius captus. It's the major extender of the neck. When you pull your head back, it does that. And then the trapezius also can pull the head back, but it attaches to the shoulders, and it can raise the shoulders and kind of pull them together and back. So more important muscles. Next week, we'll also go over muscles that flex and extend the arm. So you'll have to know, or the elbow. So you have to know the biceps brachia, the triceps brachia, brachialis, and the brachioradialis, which are shown there. These are, the three of them are flexors. The triceps brachia, that's an extensor. And then the muscles of the abdominal wall, which we can see here. These are in sheets. These are muscles that compress the abdomen. Some of them can flex or twist the spine. Running right down the center is the rectus abdominis. It's divided by connective tissue, so that's the six-pack muscle. It flexes the spine and compresses the abdomen. Then lateral to that, the most superficial one is the external abdominal oblique. You use that when you twist to the side, but it also compresses the abdomen. And then below that, you can see in the cutaway on the left side there, you see the internal abdominal oblique, which has fibers that run in a different direction, and transverse abdominis even below that. These muscles all compress the abdomen, and when you do twisting, sit-ups, or turn to your side, they will be active then. Okay, in addition then, the third week, we're going to work on muscles of the leg and pelvic girdle. So here, you're going to have to know the iliopsoas. It goes it acts to move the leg forward, as in taking a step during walking. Okay, then on the surface of the leg, you'll have the sartorius, that's an abductor. The tensor fasciolata, another abductor on the side there. Then kind of the groin muscles, the three muscles kind of in between there, the pectineus, adductor longus, and adductor magnus. And the gracilis, these are all adductors. They draw the leg towards the midline. Then kind of below these, you can kind of see the quadriceps. The rectus femoris, which runs straight down the thigh, the vastus intermedius, vastus medialis, and vastus lateralis. These all insert by way of the patellar tendon through the patella into the patellar ligament on the tibia, and they extend the knee. So when you want to straighten a bent knee, like in kicking a football, these muscles are very active. Whoops. Yeah, okay. So that was the view of them. Let me go back here. There's the view of them on the side where with the skin is not removed. You can kind of see them. Okay. Then from the posterior view, the largest skeletal muscle in your body, the gluteus maximus, going from the ischium and ilium onto uh, the um, the greater trochanter of the femur. This extends the thigh like standing up from a seated position. Okay, and so a very, very strong muscle. Very, very important. Okay, here this view is a view with some of the superficial muscles removed, and you can see the adductors, the groin muscles. Okay, if you pull the groin, then you have trouble. It hurts every time you need to move your leg in. Yeah, and so that's another group of muscles that we talk about is the hamstrings. I never knew what the hamstrings was. These are the big muscles on the back of the thigh, and there are three of them. There is the biceps femoris on the lateral side, and then on the medial side, there's the semitendinosus and the semimembranous. And these muscles all flex the knee joint. And when you run, these muscles are flexing the knee, so very strong muscles that way. Okay, and then lastly, muscles of the lower leg. These are flexing or extending the ankle. Two flexors of the ankle, they do this dorsiflexion. These are the gastrocnemius and soleus. They insert by way of the Achilles or calcaneal tendon onto the heel bone. Okay, and then in the front, and a muscle with the opposite action is it does what's called dorsiflexion of the foot. It's the tibialis anterior. It's the biggest of these anterior compartment muscles. Okay, so again, we're going to go over these muscles in the lab. This week's lab assignment will have muscles associated with the head and some general stuff on muscles. So you'll see that. It'll take us 3 weeks to do all the muscles. We'll do the first week at home and the third week at home. But next week we'll be together to look at some models and look at the cadaver. Okay, that's all it takes.